Okay, it's 8 o'clock. We're going to start. Good morning, everybody. I'm John Casper with the Oshkosh Chamber of Commerce, and welcome to our Oshkosh Board of Education Candidate Forum, coming to you virtually. Usually we like to do these in person, but Zoom seems to be the way that things are going these days, and we've been doing pretty well with Zoom broadcasts like this over the last, oh God, almost 2 years now. Good God, way too long. We have an hour set aside for this. A couple things. I'll talk about the format we're going to be using in a second here, but we are recording this, so we will be posting it on our website, and hopefully members will come back and view the video of this and the recording of this at some point. Questions that we have. I mean, first of all, the format. We're gonna have each candidate do an opening comment. I think we set aside 2 minutes for each opening comment. We're going to follow with a series of questions, and the questions we got from our membership, and we got a lot of questions, and there's some that'll be kind of typical of what a chamber would ask, but some are not necessarily as typical as some we would ask. So we kept a couple of those because of the they came up very often in terms of some of the suggestions that we have. So when we do the questions, each candidate will get the same question, and then each will have 2 minutes to respond to each of those questions, and then we will alter responses of the candidates. So then at the end, there'll be a closing 1 minute for each candidate to do a closing comment. So we're going to try to get done by 9 o'clock. And I know some of our candidates have other appointments right after that, so we'll be mindful of that. So with that, we have our timer McKenna with us today, and she'll be flashing up time when we hit that mark. So if I jump in, I do jump in. So with that, let's start with opening comments, and let's start with Stephanie Carlin.
Thank you, John. Good morning. I'd like to begin by thanking the Chamber for organizing this event. I'd also like to thank my fellow participants for being here today and for everyone who is watching. My name is Stephanie Carlin. I am seeking my third term on the Oshkosh Area School Board. I have 3 children who attended Oshkosh schools, including a graduate of 2020. In addition to serving on the board, I am an instructor at the Oshkosh Senior Center. I have the pleasure of teaching clients how to use smartphones with Connect Through Tech programs. I also work at UWO in the Division of Continuing Education, assisting with marketing and social media. I am here this morning for one major reason: students. With every decision I make, I ask the same question: what is best for students? What is best for students is attracting high quality teachers to our district. Teachers are instrumental to retaining student success, and we need to make sure we are attracting and retaining the very best teachers in the district. What is best for students is a strong literacy curriculum that teaches all students to read and write and addresses the needs of students with learning disabilities, including dyslexia. What is best for students is access to mental health services and peer support groups. I support efforts that keep our students healthy and safe. What is best for students is a strong and stable school board. The Wisconsin Association of School Boards recommends that incumbents seek another term as a result of the disruption from education from the pandemic. I bring 6 years of experience to the board and have served as the Education Committee Chair and currently serve as Legislative Chair. It would be an honor to serve another term. Thank you for the opportunity to answer your questions this morning, and I humbly ask for your vote on April 5th.
Okay, great. Our next candidate is Kelly DeWitt.
Hi there. Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity, as Stephanie had said. My name is Kelly DeWitt. I was born and raised right here in Oshkosh, where I attended Merrill Elementary, Merrill Middle, then graduated from North High School. I've spent the last 10 to 15 years of my professional experience working right here in our community with economically disadvantaged children and families. Most of the groups of people that I have worked with rely heavily on the support of the Oshkosh School District. So I have really seen firsthand how important our school systems are, and the relationships that staff, parents, and the community really play into our students growing older and being productive members of society. I have spent the majority of my campaign really out in the community, talking with hundreds of people, asking for their voice, what they want to see different, what they would like to see changed. And the main theme of a lot of these conversations is that our community members, our taxpayers without children, even staff within our district and parents, along with students, don't feel heard. So I'm really running because our children, our community, and our future deserve a board member that is willing to fight for, share with, and listen to its community. And I believe that that board member is me. So I ask for your vote come April 5th. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kelly. Now, Sarah Doherty Noe. Sarah.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Noe. I am a product of the Oshkosh Area School District as I attended Green Meadow, South Park, and West. I also have a couple of degrees from UW Oshkosh, one in marketing with an entrepreneurship emphasis, and then a Spanish major as well. I run a successful local trucking company here in Oshkosh, most successful because, as we all know, supply chain is key right now, and I'm happy to be part of the supply chain, at least for at this point in time. I have run that company for the last 8 years. My father began it in 1982, and that's where I've learned most of my leadership skills. My decision to run was made based upon my belief that the composition of the school board should better reflect our community as a whole. I believe many community members did not receive much representation over the last few years on the school board. And if the last couple of years have taught me anything, it's that you cannot overlook the importance of empowering individuals to become aware and active in their community. Through our formation of the SOS Save Oshkosh Schools, we looked to bring issues of our school district to the forefront so that they could be addressed. We also encourage buy-in within our group so that they might have success in that ownership in that success. I encourage the community to find their voice and ensure they are being represented by local government. I know as a business president, but anyone in business, we have been affected significantly. And as employers, we were affected based upon the fact that our children were not in person for nearly a school year. So we had to make adjustments, and I think especially small businesses, we were affected significantly. So I look to make changes in the school board, and I hope you vote for me on April 5th. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. And our last candidate, Liz Slodgy. Slodgy,
Yes.
right? All right.
Yes.
I was practicing all morning. I think I told you to figure that out. So,
All right.
Liz, your opening comments.
All right. Thank you. Yes, I would just like to thank the chamber. I know because I've run campaigns in the past that every year you help inform voters, and I really appreciate that. And I'm excited for this new format in doing so. My name is Liz Szilagyi. I am a mom to 4 Oshkosh Elementary students. I am a licensed teacher, but currently I am a graduate student at UWO. When I first ran for the board several years ago, this is my first term, so I'm finishing up my 3rd year. I immediately contacted a local friend who runs a successful business here. I knew he would help me kind of organize my thoughts. So I met with him right away and I gave him my long laundry list of reasons why I was running for the school board. And after hearing me out and understanding my motivations, he said to me, Liz, it sounds like you want to make Oshkosh a destination school district. So that was the slogan of my first campaign. And that's really still what motivates me. I want people to buy their homes in Oshkosh, to support our local businesses, build their businesses here, work here, play here, send their kids to school here, and be a part of our community. That was my experience. My husband's a state employee, and we were given a list of several cities in the state of Wisconsin where he could choose to work. And Oshkosh was on that list. And to us, it was the clear winner. And so I wanted to help other people see that Oshkosh is the clear choice for a great place to raise a family. In my first campaign, you know, like I said, I had a long laundry list of reasons, but I really focused on the long-range facilities plan. I felt like we needed to update our schools and also consolidate them to make them more effective, to make them more attractive to families. And I'm really grateful that the community has supported that. And I hope people see value in our long-range facilities plan. Next on my list was really to improve student outcomes. I was a high school and middle school English teacher, and as a teacher, I was tasked with the responsibility of making sure my students grew in their reading abilities by at least a grade level. And my results, as I tracked the data, and I was evaluated on this data, my performance and my employment as a teacher was based on this.
Yeah, I think we hit our
Time.
time limit, so
Okay,
sorry
I
about
just
that.
say my students grew more than a year, so I have the experience to help us do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry having to do that, but we got
Oh, that's okay.
Ern's time, and we'll give you a few seconds to do that. So, okay, so as I mentioned at the outset, questions came from our membership. So I did go through and review the ones that came up most often. So I'm those ones we are using. We'll start the first line of questioning. Kelly DeWitt will respond first. The question is, there are distinct differences between each of the 4 candidates that are seeking positions on the Board of Education. Please outline what distinguishes your candidacy and qualifications than those of your opponent. 2 minutes.
All right, great. Well, I always have, throughout my campaign, I have told folks that I bring a little bit of a unique skill set and a little different of an approach to the school board here. I have spoken with, like I said, hundreds of people, and I think that the main thing that needs to be brought is just an ability to engage and connect with people on any sort of level. So throughout my professional experience, I have worked with a lot of different groups of people, anywhere from people who are incarcerated, getting ready to re-enter the community, to children and families who are really struggling, to people who have been at the top, very successful business owners, and to be able to connect with them and relate with them and bring just almost like a human connection approach is what I believe is my strong suit and what sets me apart from the other candidates. I'm really able to just talk with and connect with anybody regardless of any type of status. I think that my experience professionally has really will help me complete the circle of life that I talk. And what I mean by that is all of my different experiences throughout my professional career has kind of always lumped in a circle of being able to help the community, being able to help folks become self-sufficient, teach individuals, especially students, that regardless of where they have come from, that they can and will achieve anything with the proper support. And I think that really sets me apart from everybody else. So I appreciate the question. Thank you.
Sarah, your same question.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
So I am, I guess, first and foremost, my experience is going to come as from a business perspective. There are many best practices to be learned from businesses. Many of us work a lot of hours and put in a lot of effort, and we do whatever we can to be successful. We also work until we get it done and get it done right. And I think there has to be an attitude of a can-do attitude, and we'll find a way. I don't know that perspective was used the last couple of years when our children weren't in person. So again, I really want to be that person that if there's a problem or there's an issue, I want to look at it from a perspective of business. I spoke to many of you during the recent annual chamber meeting, and I know a lot of you are looking at making connections with our school district. Some of you may not feel comfortable and you need a person that you can come to. I do have a good relationship with many of you in the business community, being that I'm in small business. And I think we're looking for making more of a collaborative effort with our school district. I don't know that that's always been a focus. I would certainly love to join forces with many of you. During that annual meeting, I spoke to many of you interested in being part of maybe mentoring some of our students and setting up some more apprenticeships and or internships. And you're just looking for that person to be that connection. So I'd be happy to uh, be that person for you. And, we understand things a little bit differently when we're coming from a business perspective. And I hope that my candidacy brings a little bit of light, a little bit of hope for those of us that want to look at things a little bit differently and not necessarily from academia, but from a true real life perspective. Thank you.
Great. Liz, same question.
Yes. Can you remind me the time for these answers? Is it still 2 minutes?
2 minutes for these,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. I had time myself so that I don't go over again. Yes. So what qualifies me is that I do have teaching experience. I know what it's like as a teacher to collect data and use that data to improve student outcomes. I think data is a really important tool. I'm assuming that businesses use it a lot too to drive their decisions and to know if they're making progress and headed in the right direction or if they need to pivot and make some new choices. At our meeting tonight, we're going to review our literacy curriculum. And that's something that I have been pushing as the education committee chair for 2 years and also now as a committee member, is that we need better data. We need better assessments to really know where our students are at so that as a district, we can lift our overall scores. They've been stagnant for a few years. And my classroom experience gives me a personal understanding of what kind of task is ahead of us as we look to move those scores and improve our district to show families that we are a place where they want to educate their kids. Like I said, I've led the education committee and I also have experience leading the policy committee. I've been on the policy committee for 3 years and I am now the chair of that committee as well. Education policy, my father was an educator, my mother was, my aunts were, my brother is. So education policy has really been at the root of my life. And so this is the experience I bring to the table.
Great. Stephanie Carlin, same question.
Can you repeat the question, please?
There's differences between each of the candidates that are seeking the office in the position on the Board of Education. Could you please outline what distinguishes your candidacy and qualifications than those of your opponents?
Great. Thank you so much for that. I bring 6 years of real life experiences to the school board. I will be seeking my 3rd term. I have served as the chair of the education committee and I have also served as the chair of the legislative committee. I am a parent, and so with every decision I make, I'm always wearing my parent hat. Sometimes, however, I have to take off my parent hat and put on my school board hat and do what is best for students. I also have direct knowledge on how the school district operates and the communication policies and the policies that we developed as a school board. I also have experience working and collaborating with the business community. The apprenticeship program with Oshkosh Corporation was one of the things that I supported. I also support PALS, and I am also working to get even more apprenticeships in the community. In fact, at one of our most local meetings, we were discussing how we can get students involved in hands-on experiencing, helping us build a new middle school, which I think is a fantastic opportunity. We're hoping to partner with local construction companies and electricians, because we think that getting that kind of hands-on experience for our students will help get them career, college, and community ready. And not only that, it will be something that they'll talk about for years, being involved with building the new middle school. So I'm excited about the opportunity to serve another term, and I appreciate the question. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Our next question coming up, Sarah Noe will be answering this first. And this is the question that was asked, submitted more than any other question or variation of this. That was very interesting, so that's why we kept it there. Question is, what is your thought about allowing a male who identifies as a female to compete in an all-female sport?
All right, so this one's on me, huh?
You get, you're the lucky one to start.
Okay, I can do it. So I guess from a school board perspective, the fact of the matter is that the school board isn't really making most of those decisions. It's really going to come down from, there's obviously a couple cases that are out there, and the case law is probably going to set precedent. There are also rules that we're going to need to follow based upon WIAA and I know that they have been looking at it. For the most part, I believe they somewhat they kind of push it off to the school board in a bit of a way. We just need to be aware of the policies, that our policies are going to align with the rule of law. And right now, the way that Title IX was written leaves room for interpretation. And unfortunately, that's what happens with many laws, is they leave that room for interpretation. And I think it gives a lot of confusion in our world, really. So until there's a decision that's made that sets a precedent for considering the gender that a student identifies with, I think we need to stick with the general interpretation of the gender assigned at birth, and so schools are able to provide an equal opportunity for that sport. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Liz, same question.
Yeah, I had the same thoughts that a lot of this, as we see other states trying to make laws. I know in one state, for example, they already set up a big fund for defense because they know that their state law might not comply with federal law. So a lot of this really has to do with how the law will be interpreted, which I think we'll see in coming years as these legal cases go forward. As far as I'm guessing that people ask that question, also just want to know my personal opinion. I think a lot of this comes down to the individual. Some students transition really young and they have their testosterone blocked, which would make them, when you look at competing at Olympic levels or the levels where they test kind of the hormones in your system for drug use and things like that. Some women who have transitioned really young actually pass those tests and meet the requirements necessary to compete. But obviously there might be individual cases where that is not the circumstance. And I think that's really also what needs to be taken into consideration, is that individual students' needs, where they're at in their process, making sure, if they can't compete through WIAA, which that might be the decision that's made, just making sure that they still feel included somewhere else, and that they have support through the process, but that we're also complying with the law and following all necessary steps in meeting the standards that we're held to as a school district.
Thanks, Liz. Okay, Stephanie Carlin.
I thought that Sarah did a really good job answering this question. I'm really grateful that this is not a decision that our school board has to make right now. I think that there's a lot of factors that play into making this decision, and it's complicated. And it's one of those kinds of things that I don't think anybody has the answer to yet. These are uncharted territories right now, and it's something that is brand new. And I personally don't know how I feel about it, because I see both sides of the situation and I'm always looking to find a common ground. And again, I am grateful that there are other groups that are setting precedents out there that we can look forward to for guidance, because at this time, I don't have enough information to make a policy, and I'm grateful that others are working on figuring this out right now. Thank you.
And lastly, Kelly.
Sure. I would have to go along the lines of everyone else. I don't believe that this is a decision that the school board alone should be making. You also need to make sure that you are following all of those WIA rules, making sure that you are essentially following the law. However, I will share that I believe we need to protect women's sports, and the truth of the matter is that this would ruin that. So I think that as long as we remain girls playing in girls sports and boys playing in boys sports, this shouldn't be something that we are even discussing. Thank you.
Okay, great. On to our next question, and our next question will be starting with Liz. So it's a longer question, somewhat curriculum related. The Department of Public Instruction released its student performance report card this past November, and while the Oshkosh Area School District received an overall score of 69.9, which puts the district in the meets expectations category, The district was outperformed by the rest of the state in two categories, English language arts and mathematics, in the advanced and proficient ratings categories. As a member of the school board, what will you do to ensure improved scores in these areas?
Yes, this is my thing. I love this. When we look at our math curriculum that we have at the different grade levels, pre-COVID, it was increasing at a rate of 3 to 4% every year. I believe the stagnation that we've seen over the last year, there was 1 year where we didn't actually get data, the stagnation between the 2 years in between, I believe is obviously a result of COVID. I have confidence that our curriculum that we have in place for math will jump back to where we were before, that we'll continue to see growth now that kids are back in school every day. As far as English language arts, I do not have that same confidence in the curriculum, and that's why I have really pushed for the literacy audit that we're going to review at our meeting tonight, and that's why I will push for more training for our teachers, more support for our teachers, a better alignment of assessments. Right now, if you have a student in elementary school, they take like 6 different assessments to assess their reading. And that's not an effective way for teachers to gauge where students really are and where they will be on that DPI report card. So that's one of the first things that we need to address. Thank you.
Hey, Stephanie Carlin, what are you planning on doing to improve performance in those areas?
Well, first of all, I'd like to echo a lot of what Liz said. I agree with a lot of her comments. One thing that I am looking forward to is, as Liz mentioned, our literacy audit. I've been on the board for 6 years now, and the DPI report card, every time it comes out, we always want to do better because we never stop improving. So regardless of how our scores are, there is always room for improvement. And I know that our staff and our teachers and our administrators are always constantly working towards that goal as well. As in terms of assessments, I'm curious to see the impact of the pandemic that has had on our scores. Obviously, in-person learning was not as effective in terms of probably getting our scores up. So I think it's going to take some time to get a real assessment of what our scores look like. But again, making sure that we are choosing the best curriculums and making sure that these curriculums are implemented as they are intended to be in every school is a goal of mine, and a goal I know of the education committee and of all of our administrators too. We never settle for second best, and we will continue to strive regardless of our scores. So, this is an important issue, and I'm glad that we're talking about it because there have been times when people have not paid attention to our literacy scores. And I think it's absolutely important that we continue to move the needle on these scores. Thank you.
Hey, Kelly DeWitt, your response.
Sure, thank you. I think first off, we need to start with engagement. We need to be collaborating. We need to be asking questions. So we need to be asking our staff, asking our students what it is that they need to be successful. I would have to agree that I don't believe these assessments are really showing the true scores, essentially, or the true education of our students. But I believe that there are people out there that are willing to help. I think by collaborating, engaging, asking questions, I think that's a good start, because as we know, when we all feel engaged and we all feel valued and we all work together, we're able to succeed in a lot of different areas. So I think really just by that engagement, collaborating, and asking the questions, I think we can see some big success. Thank you.
Lastly, Sarah.
Okay, so I think first and foremost, we do need to look at the English language arts, the literacy. Without improving our literacy scores, any other subjects are just not going to happen, whether it be math or social studies, anything. So from a perspective of what's the most important, it truly is literacy. And the fact of the matter is that when those scores do come out and we realize how bad COVID did affect our children, there's got to be some responsibility put on the school board because many of us were fighting to have our children in person, and that didn't happen. We knew that our children needed to be in person to get the right type of education that they needed. So now to say in hindsight that maybe we should have been in person or virtual learning affected our children poorly, well, we knew that. We knew that was going to happen. So I think it's only good that more people were brought the scores to their attention, and that's what COVID was able to do, is to bring that out, and now we're addressing it. But my question is, why weren't we addressing it before? You know, we have incumbents here who have been on the board, and I will say that Liz has been the majority of her being on the board was during COVID. But you know, Stephanie has been on there for 6 years already. We need to have been doing this before. We have a significant gap in our lower income families and for their achievement. We need to address that because there are going to be students coming out into adulthood here soon, and they need to have the skills. And if they can't read or write, they're not going to be successful. So thank you.
Great, thanks. Thank you all. Next question then goes to Stephanie Carlin first. Again, this was a very, very much asked question, different variations of it, but it's very recent in terms of some things and discussions going on nationally. The state of Florida just passed a law restricting teaching about sexual orientation and gender identity in public schools. Would you support a similar measure in Wisconsin? And please discuss your position.
Okay, so glad I get to go first on this question. Not an easy answer, and it's something that's evolving. So, you know, I have to look more into that policy because I've only heard some of the reports on the media. You know, I off the top of my head, I'm not sure if I would support that. Oh, let's see, Sarah, would you mind muting your microphone? I'm getting some background noise.
It's actually me, and yes, I will.
Oh, thank you. So, you know, I was surprised when I heard that because, you know, we haven't had book bannings and we haven't had curriculum, you know, books pulled from the shelf for several decades now. And this is the 21st century. And this is a real topic. And I don't think that I would support that in our school district. I think that I believe in, you know, teaching what is out there. I think that, you know, as things evolve and things come to the forefront, it is our responsibility as a school district to, in fact, teach what is happening in the real world, and just ignoring it and pretending like it's not going to happen and start banning books is a step backwards to me. And so I guess that I'm coming around to the long answer that no, I don't support that. I think that that is, I think that that's censorship, and I think that goes against the First Amendment. Thank you.
Up next is Kelly. I'm going to repeat the question so you yeah, the state of Florida just passed a law restricting teaching about sexual orientation and gender identity in public schools. Would you support a similar measure in Wisconsin and this position?
Well, thank you for the question. I would have to say, first off, we need to look at all of the ins and outs of the similar bill. If we are talking, you know, exact what's happening in Florida and what just passed in Florida, I would stand up and I would say, yes, I do support that. Pretty simple answer.
All right. Sarah, you're up.
So the question was actually about discussing gender, and it was actually more of a curriculum question. It had nothing to do with banning books, my understanding. I think the purpose of the law in Florida was actually that we aren't teaching students from a school education system in, I think it's under third grade, that they're not really supposed to be talking about gender. Really, that's the time that students should be doing active learning, you know, playing, focused on the basics. So I don't know that that would have any sort of a place in third grade and under, because again, that's what I think Florida is. I think a lot of those such topics are something that should be approached, especially at the younger ages, through parents. I do support the ability for children to speak to trusted people, whether it be in education, in healthcare, or a trusted family member. But third grade and under, I don't know that that the curriculum should include active teaching. So that would be my stance. Thank you.
And finally, Liz.
Sorry, you cannot come in. Um, yes, so when I think of this question, I think of my future as a school counselor, and I think Sarah was kind of getting at this. As a school counselor, students need to be able to come into school counselors and talk about issues. Perhaps maybe they have a family that has a different makeup than other families in the community, and a student needs to talk about that. And I do have concerns that laws like this might prevent students from being able to go to a trusted adult, whether it's an educator or the counselor, and discussing their own personal family life situations and experiences. I also know that kids, my own kids included, just naturally talk about gender. They're kind of fascinated by gender, honestly, the differences between boys and girls. And so I'm kind of an anti-regulation person. I feel like the more regulations we put on, whether it's business or education, or, the more government regulates these kinds of things, the stickier situations become. And so as a teacher and as a future counselor, I just have to wonder how our teachers are supposed to handle that when young kids who are very honest and forthcoming with what they discuss just bring up gender issues, or like I said, the difference between sexual orientations between different parents that are represented right there in the classroom. And so I would just want to better understand as an educator how this regulation would affect that dynamic that I would have with my students in the classroom before I would be able to say whether or not I supported it. I would hope that most curriculums, third grade or younger, don't cover sexual orientation. I know that our school district does not until fourth grade. That's the first time there's, those conversations about your own gender and anatomy. And then fifth grade, it's about the other gender and anatomy. So I know our district's following that. But I just am always wary of regulation, whether it's on business or government.
Great. Thank you. Next question, and Kelly DeWitt will start this one first. In a recent statewide survey, employers have indicated that school districts, and this is across the state, are not placing enough emphasis on core subjects like reading, writing, mathematics, and other STEM programming. As a member of the Oshkosh Board of Education, what are you going to do to ensure that the district invests educational dollars in these areas?
Well, I think that as a school board member, you really need to encourage fiscal responsibility. So when we're looking at things such as math, reading, writing, asking for more money is not necessarily always the answer. I think that we need to be able to look at our budget and make some edits to be able to increase in these areas. So money always isn't the answer. So being fiscally responsible, looking at that, and I'm always going to go back to collaboration and asking the questions, what is needed. You need to be able to ask our staff, ask our teachers, ask our parents, and even truthfully ask our students what it is that they need to learn better and achieve better scores and be able to enter the real world with having these skills. So I would never be one to throw more money at it, because I don't think that's the answer. We need to be able to be okay with trying something different. We need to be able to be okay moving some funding around, especially if we look at our admin budget, we're sort of top heavy. So to be able to move that, to put it into different areas such as this to help improve our math, reading, and writing, I think that is something that we need to be able to be comfortable doing. Thank you.
Great. Sarah Noy.
Well, the question kind of builds a little bit before when we were talking about literacy and math. My issue is the school districts, not just ours, throughout the country, seem to be focused on so many things, and it's kind of like a business. If you are doing, you're trying to do everything, and you don't do anything really well, that's kind of the perspective I take. Like, we're a trucking company, so we're going to focus on moving freight from place to place. We aren't going to try to do all the things that maybe our customers might want us to do, but we certainly just don't have the ability, the funds, the knowledge of doing it. So first and foremost, we do need to have our budget focused mostly on literacy, math, improving that. Obviously, development for our teachers, because when they have the skills that they need, they are going to be able to be great educators. So I know that the school board kind of is able to move funds around to where they feel it's most important. And I want to make sure that we are truly focusing on the education and not all the extras first. When we have excellent literacy and math scores, and when we do not have an opportunity or achievement gap with lower income or non-English speaking families, then we can look at the extra stuff. But really, that's what we should be focusing first and foremost are those basics in education, and build a great foundation and work from there. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, I'm probably going to take a little more of a non-traditional approach to this. One of the things that I believe from my personal experience as a teacher and also as a parent of 4 young kids is I believe it's not about the amount of time that students spend on the core subjects, it's about the quality of time. So one of the things that I've always been a strong advocate for is increasing recess at our elementary school grade levels. I believe that if students were given more opportunity for free play with their peers, more opportunity for breaks between, say, subjects like reading and writing, we would actually see improved outcomes. As a teacher, I taught at 2 different schools, and one school had really, really devastating low scores. And so they put more resources, more time, more energy into English language arts. I actually had my students for 2 hours every day all year. And we didn't actually see the improvements we wanted. So I'm not a believer that more time, more resources is what is necessary to see change. Because the second school I worked at, it was more traditional, where students just came to me for 50 minutes of English language arts. And that's the school where I actually saw more growth. So I'm a believer that it's about quality of time versus length of time. And as far as the budget goes, I'll just be real quick about this. More than 70% of our budget goes to personnel. The bulk of our budget is used to pay for our staff. And we're kind of a human resources department. I mean, that's what we do. We're in the business of people. So it makes sense. And that is how it's supposed to be. But I do think it's important to make sure that that 25 to 30% that's left for things like curriculum is going to improve our DPI reports and making sure that we are progressing as a district in our outcomes.
Great. Okay, Stephanie Carlin.
Thank you. I'm going to take even a little bit of a different approach. I believe that allocating resources for STEM education, resources that empower our teachers, is one of the most important things that we can do right now. I work with legislators through the legislative committee, and we are constantly talking about ways that we can find resources without asking for additional funding, the way we can redistribute resources, how we can work together to make sure that our teachers are getting the resources that they need. And so it's not always about funding, it's about having conversations about what other schools are doing and how they are being able to do it. And really it comes back to empowering our teachers. But I also wanted to take a moment and clarify the role of the school board regarding these curriculum decisions and test scores and whatnot. There are a group of people who have degrees and have gone to school for years and years and have PhDs. And these are the people that are making the decisions on our curriculums. The role of the school board is to review the curriculum and take into consideration the suggestions that they have given us. I have not gone to school to choose curriculums, and so I rely heavily on the expertise of the administrators and the teachers that come to us and come to our committee meetings and tell us what kind of curriculums are working for them. I am a huge supporter of STEM curriculum, but I am also a huge supporter of STEAM curriculum, including the arts, because I think that, you know, the arts that we have seen disappear over the past few years is kind of tragic. You know, we've lost a lot of English, or we've lost a lot of German teachers, we've lost a lot of French teachers. And I think that these kinds of curriculums are just as important as some of the other ones. So thank you for the opportunity to answer that question.
Okay, well, we're moving right along here, so we do have time for one more question, and then we'll go to closing statements. I think we will start with Sarah Noe first. We'll get this question. And it's a kind of budget question, kind of student performance question. So last September, the administration did a budget presentation to the school board, and the district spends approximately $160 million per year, which is an operating expenditure per student of $15,123. This is over $1,800 higher than Appleton, $1,000 more than Fond du Lac, and $728 higher than the Eau Claire School District's operating expenditure per student. With this level of expenditure, is the question here, with this level of expenditure per student, is that appropriate given our student performances results to date? Please discuss that.
Oh, okay. Excuse me. So from what I've noticed in looking at funding, we actually spend, from what I understand, increased portion, I believe, for I guess I don't completely understand it, but it sounds like we are spending some of our general education funding actually on our special education. And I don't know that that's like a bad thing, because obviously we do need to focus on special education, but it sounds like the what we spend per student for special education is not or what we have in the budget is not sufficient, or what we're getting for federal funding for that. So I know some of our funding has gone towards increasing special education. Again, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. We do need to make sure that we are using it to the best of our abilities. Oshkosh is top heavy as far as administration side. And I don't just mean superintendent, but there are a lot of people who are very well paid in the top, or some specialty, and possibly the teachers who are actually doing the education are not receiving that funding. So, or I wouldn't say funding, they're not receiving that as far as salary. So I think we need to really focus on who's doing the teaching of our students, and that's where the funding should be going towards. So the amount that we spend, if you calculate that out over how many students are in a classroom, that's actually a lot of money. So we should be getting a lot more bang for our buck. But I just don't see that that's happening. So it's definitely something we need to see where we're spending that money, because obviously we're not truly spending it on the education. Thank you.
Liz, you're up.
Yes. Sarah hit on something that's really passionate of mine, which is that we do take money every year from our general fund, more than every school district across the state has to do this, actually, because both the federal government and the state do not fund us at the levels they have told us they would for special education. But Oshkosh is significantly higher than the surrounding districts. So a lot of that per student funding, at least about 2,000 of that per regular education student, is taken and put into our special education fund. And when you look at the number of special education students we have in Oshkosh, it's higher than our surrounding communities. It's actually pretty significantly higher. And that is because we have such an amazing special education program. I know families who move from other districts to Oshkosh. I know families who send most of their kids to private school, but keep their special education students in public school, because we are known to have that reputation as being wonderful with special education students. So that's something I'm proud of, but it's advocacy work that we need to do to make sure that we're not being underfunded there. We used to always, when I first moved to Oshkosh, I always heard how we were a low spending district, that our per pupil spending was low. And as a board member, it's just been in recent years that that's no longer the case, that this is what you got to, John, is absolutely correct, that we actually do have a pretty decent per student spending. Part of that also has to do with the way the state reimburses school districts. School districts who have more students with low socioeconomic status actually get more out of state funding than, say, school districts to the north of us who do not have as many socioeconomic differences. So part of that is needed for like our Lighthouse program, our after school program that helps students who need an extended school day. And part of it also comes from our successful referendums that we've had the community support to build new buildings. So these are kind of the many different places that higher than average per student spending is going to. But I think you're exactly right that when we have that, and Sarah's right too, it needs to be reflected in the way we pay our teachers, and it needs to be reflected in our outcomes for our students.
All right, Kelly DeWitt.
Thank you. So I will piggyback off of what Sarah had said. I do believe that there's a lot of tough questions that need to be asked when it does come to the budget, right? We're looking at a new school that's, I believe, 1.6 or $1.7 million over budget. Okay, we need to look at that. We have a rising daily, it seems like, mental health gap, concern that's growing. We have our math and literacy scores that are almost equivalent to Milwaukee Public Schools, an achievement gap that's growing daily. Yet our focus when it comes to the budget seems to be talking about a potential sports arena or a new school that's already over budget. I do agree that we need to put, some funds into our special ed department, as well as paying our teachers, because they essentially are the ones who are teaching. But I don't believe that it's fair to continue to ask for continued referendums to be passed to make this okay. So I really think when it does come to a budget, we need to look at what is most important. And furthermore, I don't think that a new sports arena or a brand new school is going to help increase the issues that we are looking at and dealing with right now. So thank you.
Great. Well, that's, again, I'd like to thank you all for participating with us today. Very informative, and people will appreciate your service. Now
I didn't get to answer that question, John.
Oh, you did not? Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
did not, no.
All right, you're up.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just got distracted. Can you repeat it again while I set my timer?
Sure. I'll just real briefly. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
School district spends more than our neighboring districts in Appleton, Fond du Lac, and a comparable one in Eau Claire, by quite a bit, actually. With this level of per student spending, is that appropriate given our student outcome and our performances?
Yeah. Okay, so first I want to point out that Oshkosh has been traditionally a low spending district, which is not something to be proud of. And we have been a low spending district for as long as I've been on the school board. We've spent a lot less than our surrounding districts. And I think that we have paid a price for that. And we have seen other districts grow and other districts build new schools while we continue to be a low spending district. We only received that money in the past couple years because there was a bill passed in legislation from Madison that made it even for low spending districts to be able to start getting more money. And I was very happy to see that. Again, we've only received this for a couple of years now. And so, yeah, we have a lot of work to do on how we're going to spend that money and where it's going to go. And I think that we've already made some really good decisions in terms of we have increased teachers' salaries. We have instituted more mental health programs in our schools. And I just wanted to kind of make a correction on something that was said earlier. our literacy scores are not dropping on a daily basis, and we are not falling behind other districts as rapidly. We've only had this money for a couple of years, and I think that it's a great thing. I'm excited to see how we are going to be able to do more with this money. And again, this is a way for us to get ahead of our neighboring districts now. We finally have an opportunity where we can spend as much as our neighboring schools are. And I'd like to see that go to the teachers and the staff and programs. Thank you.
Okay, great. Now we're in the closing comment segment. So sorry about that.
That's okay.
We have allotted a minute for each candidate to make some closing remark. And I think I have my sequencing correctly, and I hope I don't miss anybody. But Liz, we're going to start with you.
Yes, I really just, again, wanted to focus on that long-range facilities plan. In that last question, I wanted to mention that I really think our consolidation of schools will help us better focus where we spend that money. For example, we want a school counselor at every school. We want a reading specialist at every school. And when we have 12 elementary schools, that means 12 of them. But when we bring it down a little bit lower, that will help us with some of these budgeting strategies to be able to have fewer librarians and school counselors and things, but also making sure that every student has access to one every day. Because the way it's worked in past years is sometimes librarians and counselors bounce back and forth between different schools. So I'm really excited about our long range facilities plan. I do think, like I said at the beginning, that's what I focused on first before the literacy, because I think that's a first step in making sure our budget's in order to get the programs we need for the student outcomes that we want to have.
Great, thanks, Liz. Stephanie Carlin.
Well, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to have this discussion. I learned a lot from some of the other candidates today. I also wanted to point out there was a comment about having a referendum, and there's no referendum on the ballot this year. And I also, we do whatever we can to avoid referendums. And I also wanted to point out that we are paying teachers really well, and they just got a 4.6 raise, which I am really proud of. And I also wanted to point out that the achievement gap is closing, and we are doing a better job at it. The last thing I'd like to say is that, the facilities plan is something that I'm really proud of, and I think that it makes a lot of sense. And I think it's going to save the taxpayer a lot of money in the long run. When we start consolidating these schools, it makes sense rather than keeping, 20 buildings open, and we're going to pare this down to a lot fewer buildings, which again will save the taxpayer money in the long run. So these are the kinds of things I support, and I also look forward to working with the business community on other efforts, because I do think that that's a very important role of the school board as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly DeWitt, your final closing comment.
Sure, thank you. Again, thank you to the Chamber for holding this event. I did want to make a correction. I didn't state that there was a referendum. I stated that I don't believe that it's fair to ask for one. I think that as a board member, it's really important to be able to connect with the community and represent yourself, not only as a school board member, but as a community in a way that really upholds your values and who you are as an individual, as well as a community. I think that, it's really important to be able to listen to all sides and share with and really encourage people to come together to, bounce ideas off of one another to see the best outcome for what matters most, and that is our children, and that is our community, and that is our future. And if we all come together and work hard and share ideas with one another, I do believe that we can be that destination district that is wanted. I think that we will see a huge improvement with our student success, reading scores, math scores, and I think also you're going to be able to see an opportunity for those students who are not college ready to come out and be successful members of society. So I thank you for this opportunity today. It's been an absolute honor to be with these four women for the last however many months.
And I would be absolutely honored to have your vote April 5th. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And lastly, Sarah Noe.
So yes, thank you for having this. It's been great. I feel a little bit more in my element than perhaps some of the other forums. I think our school district owes the community fiscally responsible practices with their tax dollars. We need to understand that the school board and the way that we're spending the money has to be driven by what the community wants. Um, I I think in the last year or so, I've held the school district accountable for some of their decisions, and we've pushed the boundaries a little bit more of expecting to be heard. We need to be enlisting the help of the community members, organizations, private businesses such as yourself, and to support the students of our school district. I think we've had missteps in our district leadership over the last few years that took far too long to address. I think our school board and members have been in the news over the last couple of years for all the wrong reasons. And we need to be able to be proud of our school board, be proud of the leadership of the school board. And so we just need to make sure we're focusing on that because it reflects on our community, it reflects on our businesses. And as someone who runs a business, we need people to come to our community and be hired and they need to, when they look up Oshkosh, they need to make sure that they see great things. So I look forward to being maybe a part of that. So if you vote for me April 5th, I would certainly appreciate it. Thank you.
Great. Again, thank you all for joining us. The community's got a decision to make next Tuesday. I would remind everybody to please go out and vote. That's local elections probably don't have the voter turnout that we should have, but the school district is a important part of their community. Spend a lot of money on this. We all spend money on it, and it's the key to what's going to drive the economy and drive our community moving forward. So please get out and vote. Go to the clerk's website if you don't know where to vote. Please do that. We have recorded this. It'll be on our website by this afternoon, and hopefully people will go out and see it again. So with that, thank you all for joining us, and
Thank
again,
you.
vote on
Yes,
Tuesday.
thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.